Now that you've taken a look at some different approaches and theories around habit formation, let's take some time to consider the first phase that a coach and a client will work on in order to begin working towards better habits and behavior modification. So, that first phase is learning, studying, and mapping the current behaviors that are at play. So, within a coaching session, the learning phase is going to look a lot like creating awareness within a given coaching, uh, any given coaching session. But instead, there's a little bit more direction that's going to be coming from the coach. When stepping into this phase, a client is often going to bring up in the first session that they want to get to this as one of their topics, and the coach is going to raise this, surface this as an option for the session that we're having today. Or in the session we're having today, the client then mentions, hey, I would like to really begin on eating better, or I really want to get back to my exercise, and can you help me set up better behavior or better habits around that? Okay, great. Now their volition, their choice is present, and we can begin working on setting the stage. Part of this is for a coach to surface the fact that understanding the nature of the habit and what is the context of the habit, the different sub habits or behaviors that build up the general habit. All of this is really important for the client to understand and recognize in order for us to really create behavior change. So we use direct communication, ask permission to share the importance of studying and learning and mapping out the behavior. And then we get their permission again to direct the coaching towards that end. Once we get that permission, then it's pretty much back to normal work, but we're just going to guide our questions along the lines of what this habit is all about. So questions would be things like, so how would you summarize the core behavior that you want to change? What are some of the little behaviors that are a part of this bigger behavior? What usually happens right before you do this? What usually happens right when you've done it or right after you've done it? Why is it so important, or what makes this so important for you to change or to work on, and so on? Most of the time, these questions are going to look at the different elements of cue, routine, and a reward, or whatever framework we're using as part of the exploration. So, what are the triggers? What are the cues? What's the thing that gets the habit routine started? And what is that routine? And then what is the reward? I want to pause here to really stress that the coach is not the expert. The client is the expert. And so the coach might be asking questions around cue, routine, reward, and other models of habit formation. But the real purpose of this is not for the coach to understand the habit, for the client to understand the habit. In this coaching, then, it is so important for the coach to ask things like, so now that you've voiced this all out loud, what are you learning about what really needs to change? What are you recognizing is going to make the biggest impact as you begin to adjust your current behavior? Those learning questions, and they should sound kind of similar to what we've done so far in coach training, but they are critical to this process. It truly steps that coach into the coaching position and the client into the expert position. And anytime we're getting into this habit formation work, we really want to avoid the coach taking any responsibility of what habit needs to be put into place, or what's going to make that process really work for the client. We might be able to offer some suggestions. We will offer some tools and frameworks, but the client is the one that is learning. We want to capitalize on the exploration by asking plenty of learning questions in order for them to open their eyes to what's really at play. And that idea is why we go to the next phase, which is study. Study is something that's used oftentimes in any kind of cognitive behavioral work within therapy, cognitive behavioral coaching, and really anything around habit formation where we are truly trusting the client in their ability to contribute to redesigning or co-designing their new habits they want to put into place. This is simply, they're going to take note each day that they are that they're behaving, and if it's like a work-related behavior, every work day. If it's a life-related behavior, every day of the week. If it's a weekend behavior, maybe taking notes on the weekends. Whenever this behavior is happening, each of those days, and ideally each instance of the behavior, they will make some notes. They will ask themselves the similar questions we've already surfaced around what starts this or triggers this behavior. What's the swarm of behaviors or the variety of little behaviors that build up the actual habit that they want to work on, and out of those, what are they recognizing is that keystone or that core one? If they could change that one, I bet we could really make some progress. What are they noticing as clients in the wild when they're in their regular routines, when they're in their regular life? Help them recognize the importance of taking notes on their behaviors. In my work in sponsored coaching within the corporate space, this is one of the harder things for a client to agree to do. So the way I would phrase it is, hey, one of the most important pieces of making changes in behavior is for the person to take notes of what their behavior really is and ask these types of questions. You might even co-design just 3 questions. We'll look at some options for what questions they could ask themselves in each case. But you offer them this idea and let them know that evidence-based theories or evidence-based work in psychology has really demonstrated the value of even just taking the notes, because when a person is tracking things in this way, sometimes just the tracking can fix things. And if it doesn't fix things, then we have all of that data to help us identify patterns and things that we might be able to adjust about the context or about the routines that are going to be as part of the habits. So the tracking, the studying on the client side is so critically important. They don't have to do it, but the coach should highly suggest it. And as always, using that direct communication bit, we let them know this is part of the way we coach around habits. This is what we would encourage them to do. What would you like to do in relation to studying your habits? That question is, again, very important. At the end of the day, the client needs to have the interest and the volition to implement something, even the note-taking. To someone who's a corporate executive and they feel like they have very, very little time, the idea of taking 5 minutes twice a day to write out some notes, that can feel overwhelming. So we want to set the right expectations with them on how much studying they will do and help hold them accountable to whatever they agree to do. Next, we work on mapping. And the idea of mapping is something that we could do within a session early on after they're done studying. They could do it on their own while they're studying. It's essentially just taking some time within the coaching to visualize the actual habit. As we've seen in some of these other videos, and as you can see in some of my videos that I'll show you after this one, there's many ways that we can map and visualize habits. We don't necessarily need anything heavy, anything extremely thorough, just something that helps us visualize the exchange, the setup, the behavior itself, and the reward, what happens as a result of the behavior. Visualize that, help them to see that in context, and then we can use that visual as a way to kind of visually adjust the model that they are currently using. This comes up in one of the ICF's expectations between ACC, PCC, and MCC, and something I think is very valuable within coaching around habits. That when using a tool or framework at the MCC level, the expectation is that there's going to be a co-designing of that for the sake of the client. And so in this training as a whole, corporate sponsored coach training, we'll be talking about how to build frameworks for you as a coach based on a variety of sources. That's in many ways what we're doing with the habit formation pieces. But the next step in that phase, or next step in that journey as a coach, is to trust the client to be able to create their own model that works for them with this specific behavior. When they have their own model and they can really understand, and they can name the different aspects of what's really going on for them, that creates awareness and a sense of what's top of mind for them in terms of the behaviors and habits. Again, it's not about the coach understanding all the details about the habits. It's not about the coach getting all the information in order for the coach to synthesize what ought to happen. The coach is facilitating a process so that that client can understand all the different pieces, all the things that they could do to adjust, all that they really want in terms of this habit, so that after the coaching is done, the client, it's their habit and they've built it. And those who are really honest, and those who are in the evidence-based field, in therapy and around cognitive behavioral work, that's so core that it's not about the coach or the therapist being the expert in knowing everything about the client's behavior change. It is the client becoming their own expert in terms of what they want to see change and how to sustain that change longer term, because that is really the win around habit coaching. I hope this is helpful. This is going to be the focus of our first round of practice coaching. We're just going to be coaching around learning and studying. So we'll start there. In next week's videos, we're really going to get into the idea of experimentation and beyond. So thank you for tuning in, and thank you for coaching.